Hello and welcome to High Impact Sales Stories. My name's Erin Sanchez from the Candid Branding Company, and I'm super excited to be here today and talk to you about storytelling and specifically the 3 must-tell stories to get more yeses. So we're going to learn how to use storytelling to persuade. And a big thank you to Simplicity Consulting for having me here and being such generous hosts. I'm super excited. I will introduce myself just a little bit more in a few minutes, but I want to just dive right into the content. So why storytelling? Storytelling is one of the oldest forms of communication. And because of that, the human brain has become neurologically wired for stories. And that's a super powerful thing for us as communicators, whether we're communications professionals or we're just trying to leverage communications in our, daily interactions, our job search, whatever the case may be. Because we're wired that way, stories actually make information that's presented in story form 22 times more memorable than facts or statistics alone. So if you want to stick in the minds of your prospects, a hiring manager, whoever, then you want to be leveraging storytelling. The second little statistic that I want to share with you today, and there are all kinds of numbers and things I could share around storytelling, but we have limited time, is that stories can actually increase your conversions by up to 30%, which is a pretty powerful number if you think about it. So for those of you who don't know me, I know a few of you know me, but most of you probably don't. I am a speaker, a trainer, and a brand strategist, and I've been in the marketing and communications trenches for over 10 years. My academic background is in communications as well. And because I am a lifelong learner and an educator at heart, I wanted to take everything that I've learned during that time and continue to learn today and share it with you. So that's why I started getting into speaking and training, just so that I could share the magic of storytelling and strategic communications. And before we dive into what stories, those 3 stories that you need to tell and how to tell them better, I want to bust a couple of myths, because whenever I get in front of a new audience, I start working with a new client, I always hear the same couple of doubts and concerns. The first one is, I'm not a good enough writer, or I'm not creative enough. Now, if you are a creative, if you are a communications professional, then you're going to love storytelling because we can get super creative with it, right? But at the same time, the way that I teach storytelling is actually very strategic. So I'm going to teach you exactly what kinds of stories you can tell for different parts of a sales or persuasion process. So it's really a strategic exercise. And the second myth is that stories won't work for me, for my business, or my industry. And the truth of the matter is, stories are industry agnostic. Storytelling, because we are wired that way, is part and parcel to the human experience. And it can move us emotionally and even physiologically. So it's the reason that we get goosebumps or we cry during a movie. We can't even help ourselves. Our subconscious brain can't tell the difference between fact or fiction. We think we're actually experiencing the story that we see on the screen or that we're reading in pages. So think about how powerful that is for you as a communicator. So like I said, the way that I approach storytelling is very strategically. So what I did is I took the traditional sales funnel and I started mapping the different kinds of stories that are most effective in those different parts of the sales funnel. And we're actually not going to deal with the top of the funnel today, the awareness piece, because that is a presentation and a workshop all on its own. That's where we're building connection and we're just getting out there and building community. But I really want to help you sell today. And remember, selling doesn't have to be, you work in sales or you're, a conversion copywriter. It could just be that you're trying to convince a hiring manager to, hire you, or to get your team to vote for your idea, or to convince your family to go with your favorite restaurant for dinner, right? So starting at that second part of the funnel, interest, we're going to look at what I call what's possible stories. Then we're going to build desire for whatever it is you're selling through education stories. And finally, we're going to help people get off the fence and take action using success stories. So I'm going to walk you through each part of the funnel right now. So, starting with what's possible stories, pretty self explanatory. These paint a picture of what's possible for your prospect on the other side of working with you, on the other side of purchasing your product or your solution. So, remember, we're right here. We're just building interest through these what's possible stories. So, let's think about a brand like Gatorade. Just you can even close your eyes and picture a Gatorade commercial. What do you see in those kinds of commercials for a sports drink like that? They don't talk about, how many flavors they offer. They don't talk about the electrolyte content, and they don't tell you that it's $1.99 for a 32-ounce bottle, right? What they do is they paint a picture of what's possible for you, the athlete or aspiring athlete, when you have Gatorade on your side, when you have this sports drink at your disposal, right? So the commercials will often look like, someone crossing the finish line after a taxing marathon or reaching a new deadlift max in the gym. So they're really painting a picture of what's possible, and they're not even focused on the features of their product at all. So what I want to do, because I'm a big fan of making everything really actionable, you can take a picture of this, but I believe this presentation will be available as a replay, as a resource for you. So you can always come back and pause this. But I just wanted to provide some prompts for your What's Possible stories to get you thinking about how to be a strategic storyteller. So you can answer these questions. What does your audience aspire to be, to have, or to do? You can highlight what life looks like before and after your solution or your idea. Or tell the story of overcoming a pain point or reaching a goal, like that marathon runner. So once you've built interest for whatever it is that you're trying to sell, you want to use education stories to provide context and show people how this solution applies to them and how they can benefit. And the truth is, we've always learned through stories from the time we were little kids, right? Fables and fairy tales like the Little Red Hen taught us to pitch in order to reap the rewards. And we learned the dangers of lying from The Boy Who Cried Wolf. But we continue to learn as adults as well through storytelling, because anytime we come across a new idea or an abstract idea, stories help to give us context in a concrete way to understand that idea. But education does something else for your offer, and education stories can really pay off. And I'm going to show you how they can increase the perceived value of your offer. If you've ever gone shopping for diamonds, or you've hoped that someone else will go shopping for a diamond for you, then you know that you'll walk into a jewelry store and the salesperson will bring out a piece of black velvet and put all of these different diamonds on there, and they'll begin to educate you about the 4 C's: color, cut, clarity, and carat. And they have an entire education system, right? A grading scale. And the higher the diamond rates or ranks on each of those scales, the better the diamond, or so they say, right? But the gem industry created this entire education system. And you can do the same thing. Because when you educate people about the 4 C's, you actually get them with a hidden and 5th C, which is cost. Right? The better the diamond, according to your education standards, the more expensive it is. So you get to increase the perceived value through providing these education stories, and you get to help people understand why they should go with your solution over the competition. Finally, we're going to look at success stories, and you might know these as reviews and testimonials, but I'm going to show you why we want to actually frame them as stories rather than just basic testimonials. And these success stories, remember, they help people get off the fence and make a decision to actually click buy or vote for your idea or hire you. So who do you trust more? A food critic who's hired to write a piece about a fancy restaurant, or a movie critic, right? Or do you trust 50 of your neighbors on Yelp or on Rotten Tomatoes? These are our peers, right? So we tend to believe the social proof. And it's the same for you. Why should someone believe you if you're the one trying to sell something? Of course, you're going to say it's the best. But if you have other people on board to, testify to how amazing you or your product is, that's a lot more powerful. In fact, 91% of millennials trust reviews as much as they do recommendations from family and friends. And 83% of people trust reviews over advertising. And the great news for you is that 90% of consumers need fewer than 10 reviews to form a decision about a brand or a business. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have 50 Yelp reviews, don't worry about it. You just need a handful of really strong success stories to help create that social proof. But let's talk about what the difference is between a testimonial and a success story and why that matters. I worked with a career coach named Norma, and she came to me and she said, I'm really struggling to get people to pay attention. Like, they'll like my posts on LinkedIn, but nobody's reaching out to work with me. Nobody's, buying anything, and I need to make some money. So we actually booked a story audit. So it's kind of where we sit down and we look at what content she has, and we come up with what stories she can tell for her brand. So she came to me with this testimonial from a happy client that she had worked with in the past. It says, Norma is great to work with. She knows her stuff and helps you get results. Highly recommend. Now, there's nothing wrong with this testimonial, right? It says nice things about Norma. It's complimentary. It's not bad, but it doesn't really evoke emotion or do some of those things that I've, shown you that storytelling can do. And there's no specificity to it. So after we worked together, we went back to this client and we said, can we work on this testimonial to, create a story, to put some more specificity in there? And this is what we came up with. Before working with Norma, I had no profile on LinkedIn, a resume that was 19 years old, and no clue where to start with my job search. In just 4 weeks, she was able to get me aligned with all of that, and I landed a great job. So you can see how this story does exactly what I was showing you in those What's Possible stories. It shows a before and an after. It's really specific, right? A resume that's 19 years old is a lot more relatable than Norma knows her stuff. Because if you have a really old resume and you feel like there's no hope for you, well, now you know that Norma can help with that and that it's still possible for you. There's also time frame here, right? In just 4 weeks. So you're going, oh, I can actually get this done in a month rather than 6 months on unemployment or whatever. And instead of just saying, Norma helps you get results, you know exactly what result. This person landed a great job. So stories are a lot more compelling because there's specificity and there's emotion in there. So I've got some prompts for you that you can use when you're reaching out to gather success stories from your clients, or even if you are, and I'm using the example of, a job search because I know what it's like out there right now. And I know a lot of you are consultants and you're often moving, into different roles. And so you could actually coach some of your referrals to remember different stories about times that you work together so that when they get that phone call from a hiring manager, your referral has a great story, a really compelling story to share. So here are some of the questions that you can prompt to get a success story. Where were you when you started this journey, and how did you feel? So just think back to that example with Norma. We want to evoke emotion. We want to tap into those emotions. So we want to make sure that we're gathering that kind of information from our past clients. What did you experience inside this program, while using this product, while working with me? And what have you accomplished since? And how do you feel now? So this is going to help you gather a testimonial that's structured in a narrative way. It has a before and an after, and it has some specificity and emotion in there. The truth is, humans love stories. It's the reason we watch, the same movie several times over the course of our lives, even when we know how it's going to end. even when we can quote every line, the power of a good story, it draws us in again and again and again. And by leveraging strategic storytelling, you can entice and persuade people in that same powerful way. So I have a gift for you, and I want to, again, thank Simplicity for allowing me to share this with you and just being so generous and so gracious. I created a PDF download, the starter guide to humanizing your brand with storytelling. I believe it's 11 pages long, and I walk you through not only the power of storytelling, but all the different places that you can leverage it, from social media to different places on your website. So it just gets you started thinking about all of the different places that you can leverage storytelling. And of course, like I mentioned before, I'm all about being actionable. So I had to put in a few pages with story prompts just to get you brainstorming and thinking about the different stories that you can use in your content and your copy and even in your conversations. So you can download that guide at bit.ly/humanize-with-stories. Now, Bitly is very particular about, being case sensitive and those dashes. So make sure that it's all lowercase and you get those hyphens in there. If you have any trouble accessing that, please reach out to me and I'll make sure that you get it. So if you do have questions or any trouble with that, like I said, you can find me at Erin at candidbranding.co. That's candidbranding.co, no M on there, or else I will not receive your message. Or if you're interested in, having me lead a workshop on, sales stories or coming in and speaking to your team, I would love to hear from you as well. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you, Simplicity, for having me.